This is Wilson Morales from Black Women TV talking to director-writer Monica Sorelle regarding her film Mountains, which has been playing at festivals throughout the year and was finally hit theaters. How are you?
I'm great. How you doing?
Good. So take me back to the beginning. You directed it, you co-wrote it. How did the inspiration for the story come about?
Yeah, I am a Haitian American born and raised in Miami, and I have always wanted to tell Miami stories. I feel like it's a city that is cinematically underutilized, and there's just so many human tales here that I want to tap into. At the same time, I was watching this neighborhood that I grew up in and love, Little Haiti, start to change due to rapid redevelopment and gentrification. I was watching businesses become displaced and the housing market rise to a point where the average person couldn't afford it. And, it had been very concerning to me for, over the past decade. And it's not just in Little Haiti, it's happening all over the city, namely one neighborhood called Wynwood, which is formerly a Puerto Rican warehouse neighborhood turned arts district that is forever under construction, and always demolishing things, including houses. And, one day in 2018, my co-writer and producer, Robert, and I were walking to lunch and kind of walking by yet another demolition site. But this time we saw a demolition worker end his shift, say goodbye to his coworkers, and then cross the busy street into the still Puerto Rican side of the neighborhood, and made me wonder, like, wouldn't it be crazy if he just lives like a short walk away from the demolition sites and is working on redeveloping his own neighborhood? Like, what are the implications of being both like a victim and perpetrator of gentrification? And so I turned to Robert as a joke, and I sort of told him that, and it took off from there.
Now, the question is, when people talk about gentrification, and we know there's changes in neighborhoods. It happens, over time. It's hard to keep something the same. Like I live in New York, and uh, New York City itself, with the exception of buildings, a lot of places, remember that hot dog stand? It's not there anymore. Remember those?
Mhm.
It's not there anymore. Rent, was it due to rent? People wanting to leave because for whatever reason, nobody wants to stay where, live there forever. And so then somebody's got to live there one way or the other. So then
Mhm.
obviously you tell this story about this family, and, even the father is thinking like, oh, I saw a nice house, because
Mhm.
everybody wants to do better than what they've got at some point, like it's not enough to be happy. It's like, oh, we can do better.
Yeah.
So then the question is, you put the story together, and you're showing different sides. Um, but what was the ultimate goal of the story you wanted to tell? Because there's a lot of different storylines in there. There's obviously
Yeah.
the son, there's moving away, there's the wife who wants to stay where she's at. There's a lot of, everybody has an opinion of something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to like kind of narrow it down because there's so many themes that we have in the film about Miami, about the immigrant experience. I think we really just wanted to comment on the sort of promise of the American dream that so many immigrants cash in on, and the sort of idea that if you just really like put your head down and work hard, like everything will come. And I think this film is sort of a look at like what are the limits of that? Like how far can you really go? What is for you, and what is really for others? And you're watching Xavier. He has a very small aspiration, which is to get this house, and it becomes really difficult to do so. Um, but I think outside of that, it's about preservation of culture Looking at the footprints that people that build a neighborhood leave behind. Like, what are the markings of Little Haiti, of Wynwood, of Harlem, of Bed-Stuy, you know what I mean? What happens when change does come, um, and what happens when people are slowly erased. Um, and so, yeah, I think we just wanted to reflect that sort of grief of not just losing a space, but being forgotten.
Did you always want to direct? You know, people look at your background, like, oh, she was part of the casting of Moonlight. It's like, okay, was there aspirations to direct, or did this come about? And then it's not just easy to say I'm going to direct. You know, it's like, you know, where is your guidance coming from? You know, it's like, was this something you wanted to do, or just something that came up? And once you knew you wanted to do it, who else did you go to as far as helping you along? Because you just can't do this off the scratch.
Yeah, I mean, I worked primarily as a producer, and that's definitely where I felt comfortable. Um, there's a lot of pressure to direct and be that front-facing person. And so I think I was very comfortable with my role as a producer. But when it came to this story, I just felt so close to it, and I couldn't imagine giving it to someone else. I really had an idea of what I wanted to get across and how. Um, and I had worked previously as a creative producer. So I was there from script to casting to editing. I made a lot of creative decisions, and I thought that that transition would be seamless. It definitely was not, and I had to adapt into that role, but I was definitely grounded by my collaborator, co-writer and producer Robert Colomb, um, who uh, was just in the trenches with me the entire time, and really built a really supportive set for myself, and not just for myself, but for many of the other crew members that, this was their first feature film as well. Many of the actors had never acted on screen before. And so I think that took some of the pressure off, in that we're all sort of in this together, and we're all trying something really big and new and scary together. And let's just, be kind about it and hold each other down.
From what you shot, how important was it in terms of getting the inside of the house so that people see, like, okay, we live like that, as opposed to like people don't live like that. You know, obviously being of Haitian descent, you know the surroundings, so you know, a script supervisor, you're probably your own script supervisor in terms of like, okay, this is the way it sets up, you know, and then the outside, you know, of Little Haiti and the people around it, like you said, when you're working with first timers, you know, they can also give you a sense based on who the cast is as far as getting it right so that
Mhm.
people can feel a sense of realness when they see this film. You know, so that's the important thing. And then, you know, putting it all together, when you have all these stories combined, you know, you have one goal. And as many other stories you're throwing in there, you want it all to for it to all balance out, you know, as
Mhm.
opposed to being a hodgepodge of this and this and that.
Yeah. I think that was sort of guided by the decision to have mostly locals work on this film. And so I definitely prioritize people from Miami or people of Caribbean descent over seasoned professionals. So, for example, my production designer, Helen Pena, um, is a friend of mine, Dominican, always had aspirations for production design. So I was like, okay, let's go, let's do it. And I trust you because I know that you get it. Like there's a shorthand here that I don't really have to explain to you. And so everyone in all the major key roles are Miami natives of Haitian, Dominican, Cuban descent, um, as well as my editor, who is a Colombian writer director, who brought his sense of tension because he works in the horror space, as well as story structure, um, into the editing room with me. And so, yeah, I decided that if we're going to make a film like this, I don't need the best of anybody. I just need the most authentic and the most willing to sort of experiment and play. And yeah, it was great.
When you make this movie, as personal as it was for you and the other people around it, sometimes I wonder if it's an albatross because you want to get it done. You want to tell the story. And so we want to look at you and say, okay, is this a one and done or are we going to see more? You said earlier that you've done a lot more producing. So like, are you going to now enter the directing phase or is this a one and done?
I'm down to do it all. I definitely have aspirations to direct more. I love directing my actors. I mean, I definitely lucked out because they're all brilliant and talented, but I really felt comfortable. If I felt comfortable anywhere with directing, it was in directing my actors, and I would love to develop that skill. But I'm also still producing. I'm gonna produce a film that will be at the Gotham Project Market this September. Um, I just love cinema, and so whatever space I could fill, I'm down to fill that. But you can expect more films from me, more films about Miami, more films about changing spaces, in the near future.
With so much films out there, whether it be on streaming, in theaters, there's a glut. Every week I'm always, I'm looking down, there's like 10 new projects. I always think it's more about the marketing, letting people know, like, this is why we're talking, to let people know that there's movies out there. What's going to get people to see Mountains? It's coming out, obviously, summertime. There's still a glut of those big budget movies that it's always blasted in your face through TV and through ads. This doesn't have that luxury. So obviously by word of mouth, people are going to talk about it. But when you want people to see it, what are you telling them?
I think that thankfully we've had a year doing festivals, so we've been able to gauge and get a response from audiences on what they've picked up on, what they like in the film. I think for one, and I think you see it a little bit in some of the smaller films that made a big splash, like I don't know, something like Past Lives comes to mind, where it's a really simple story, with just three people. Uh, and I think that, you know, maybe I'm only speaking for me, but I feel like people are a little burnt out with the big blockbusters, with the IP, with the sequels. We've seen it, we've experienced it, and I think people really miss going to the cinema and watching real people. Um, and so I think that's one avenue for people that are searching for that kind of space, that those kinds of stories. I think also, we really pack the film up with so many different things, so many themes. And so I think there's so much that people can see themselves in, such as the character of Junior, um, and his aspirations to be a stand-up comedian, and um, really disappointing his father, uh, and dealing with, being a millennial Gen Z person, and not having the income to be able to move out, or even the love story between two middle-aged people in their 50s, and how they sustain their relationship even through all of this strife. I think there's a lot of entry points for a lot of different people.
Throughout the production of the movie, and now that it's been playing at festivals, what have you learned afterwards, that helps you out skill set wise as a producer, writer, and director, moving on to your next project? Is there anything you got out of this, from when it played, as it continues to play at festivals, the feedback you're reading, or maybe after, like, okay, I'll do this better. I'll get more funding for this. That way it will allow me
Mhm.
to shoot this way or so forth. or maybe I can write this or this or that. Is there anything, you think I won't say improve on, that you'll probably do different on your next project?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a story that we really cared about a very real neighborhood and like a sort of urgency about it. And so we chose to make a micro budget film um, to be able to tell this story. We didn't feel like it was appropriate to bring big stars in or gigantic grip trucks into this neighborhood. Um, and now that I experienced that, making a micro budget film, I do feel comfortable and capable of moving up. Um, and I learned just a lot about the market. I learned a lot about the currency of film, not just the budget, but language as a currency, being authentic to the story and doing it all in Haitian Creole is a risk and not one that always pays off. So, English as like a currency, stars as a currency. Um, I'm not averse to any of these things. And, again, I would like to make things at a bigger budget. But I think where Mountains shines, and that I would like to bring into future works, no matter the budget level, is that at the heart of it, it's something that is affecting people in real time. It's something that is has heart to it, and isn't just a movie just to make a movie, but it's a movie that we wanted to use as a tool and wanted to use to touch audiences.
Well, I want to say thanks. Obviously, this is a story that people can resonate with as they watch it. And I'm sure because of the places it's gone, festival wise, they'll read about the good vibe it's been getting, and it's a testimony that it's going to be released in theaters uh, because it needs to drink. I think nowadays, when you have a micro budget film, you need to go to the festival route because it won't get as much love in the big theaters because it's not having the same marketing. I think if it can grow and grow, and obviously you've had accolades from different places you've gone with this, that's great because hey, that's why I got to make. Like I already knew about this movie, and I think you were nominated, I think last year for an Inner Spirit Award. You
Mhm.
know, and that's great because it just adds to it. So let's get this out. Let's get people to talk about it. Get people to see how this can reflect within their own lives. Who knows? And then, when your next project comes up, we'll be ready to say, remember her? She had that movie that came out,
Mhm.
and so forth. So wherever you're at, stay safe, be happy, and be happy that you got this movie out.
Thank you.
Take care. Yeah.